Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 159 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. All right, I've got daffodils out front. Right here I've got some lily of the valley that came from my grandmother that I brought down from Vermont and have grown here in the studio for many, many years. And the floor gets just wet enough and just the right amount of sun and shade that they keep on getting it. And I've got a lot of flowers planted around. I don't know what's blooming right now. We've had daffodils, some come and go. We've got daylilies that are on the way. We've got some snowdrops. We've got all kinds of odds and ends of flowers. We've got bread and butter snapdragons. A lot of stuff like that I like perennials, and I like seeing the floral, both the foliage and the habit, how they grow, what they look like, because if you have work and you want it to look good, it really helps to have good models. So put in stuff you don't have to fool with, and you'll have times of the year when they look really great. Life gets crazy sometimes. And then you get busy going other directions, working on everything all at once. And the idea of doing a video, you start one and you finish it, or you take some video and then it's a few more days and you're at a different point, and then it's more and more trying to capture all this. And so try to weave in some B-roll that I've already shot and to supplement what I'm going to talk about, and try to get back into the habit of getting videos up, because the last month or so has been just hectic. And I don't want to bring my world into this, because I don't see this video series as a blog, or where it's relevant that I'm making this today or doing something else that's not granite sculpture related. So I don't want to get too much into that. But life has been really busy the last few weeks, and so I've sort of got a break in this, and I got to get back into cutting. So I want to touch on some things that have come up, and what I'm working on, and try to get this back on schedule. We've sold more work. We've got stones waiting to come. I've got stuff to pick up this week to do, a little small. We've got a lettering job, and we've got some other projects to do. We've got one that's coming that is one of my anonymous projects. It's kind of like having an NDA, when you work with somebody and, everything's private. They get a stone and I get a check. I don't ask, I don't tell, they don't, nothing. It doesn't get published. It's just disappears out into the real world. And you've got to be comfortable doing this work, realizing that's a great customer. And I cut work for them over and over and over again. And if I got to just disappear, is my ego cool enough that I can handle just getting a paycheck to cut stone for them? They're not calling other sculptors, they're calling me. And if it sells, I get it. They're not calling 6 other sculptors to quote it. They call me. So, you got to prioritize, what's important. And, somebody had asked about straight edges and what to get and where to get. I've got my big straight edge. This is a 5 foot. I didn't buy a 6 foot. This was a precision ground straight edge that came from Trowel and Holden. They don't make them anymore. You grab these. And so they're obsolete. You can't get them. People want to do work with plumb blocks and stuff have seen me use that. These are a couple of probably starrettes. I bet if I clean them well enough, I could probably find out. But these used to be precision ground straight edges. I got 2 of them, and that I got it, got at the jockey lot at trade day one day, flea market. They're cheap and they're straight edges, and they work fine for me. I need good, straight, accurate measurements, but I'm translating that through these two hands that have been pounded on for decades into the result on stone. So as long as they're pretty straight, we're golden. But for the people that can't get a precision straight edge anymore, where are you going to get one? Okay, there's a few options. I've kind of touched on this, but I want to put it together. This is just a piece of, I think the sticker's still on it. It's a piece of 1x48 1/8 inch, just galvanized. That I got it, you can get at the hardware store, or Lowe's, or one of the big box stores or whatever. And it's pretty straight. I checked it with my straight edge, and it's accurate enough for what I'm doing. It cost $5 or something. It was expensive. I had a couple of them for many years. It worked great. Another alternative is to get a drywall square, one of these 4-foot drywall squares. Now, if you buy it new, it's probably going to be good cheap. If you buy a used one, you got to look. I've got 2 of them, and the way you generally use them is you hook them on a piece of sheetrock and you cut it with a knife. And what happens when they get worn is that knife will scrape and erode one side off, and so then they'll throw them away or maybe sell them cheap or whatever. So you're going to have one side that's junk. But in order to have your nice straight edge, just grind these rivets off. Or you can saw, you can cut off if you want, but I mean it's a little bit longer if you grind the rivets off. Take it apart and you got a straight edge. Okay, cheap. The same thing goes, you can use a carpenter square. Like I keep talking about carpenter squares. You find an old one, they're really thick, a lot thicker than the new ones, and just clip it off, one way or the other way, and you've got 2 straight edges. It's a real cheap way to have a good straight edge that you can use, because these are generally going to be parallel. These are going to be trued up just like this. You've got less of a chance. There's probably going to be more variation in terms of parallelism than in one of these just in the hardware store. But that's something you think about. I'm reworking the clay because I never got it cast and she fell apart, and I put too much effort into it and she's driving me nuts, and so I'm redoing the clay so I cast it because it's time to put her head on. I'm going to try to feed in some video here and see if I can get a little bit of video in so I don't have to bring it back out. It's really good to have an ample supply of materials in your studio, and to understand what you need to have a lot of. You don't need to have, several bags of plaster just laying around. Wait and buy those when you need them so they don't go off and they're junk and you got to throw them away. Having a bunch of clay is a whole different ballgame. Let's see if we can feed this in. About 3 years ago, we were called, and this is something I've talked about in the past, is that this is a I don't want to say we're playing chess, but this is a slow process to get this going. This is like turning a battleship. You don't just flip the wheel and it just spins around or stops or whatever. You got to really have a long view. We had a call from a retailer about a project, and they wanted a cross with Easter lilies and real old-fashioned, really cool stuff. They sent a couple pictures, and I was like, oh, we got to figure out how to sell this, because you never get to sell that kind of work anymore. People just don't see it. They don't recognize how gorgeous it is. That's not what they want. They want other things. They want an etching on the stone that's very personal. And so we went through some concepts and developed some compositions and everything, and did some sketches, whatever. It's a retailer I worked with for years. And so I started sketching it up in clay. And so I did this big cross. Let's see if we can put that in here now. Really just, it's the kind of thing you hope to get someday. But we're sketching it, and we're bouncing email back and forth, and they were asking questions, and I said, I had the cross put together, and I had a bunch of the foliage put together. The floral work wasn't done yet, the actual blossoms. And so they were wanting to know about what it looked like and whatever, we're back and forth. And I said, well, I can send you a picture of the clay, but it's not finished. there's no blossoms on it yet. There's just blobs of clay there as placeholders as I work out the structure and where things are going to be supported and everything. And so we sent that, and the customer blew up. Those are the most ugly flowers I've ever seen in my life. Never seen, those are horrible. Those don't even look like flowers. Probably the customer just wasn't ready to buy at that point. And this was a convenient way to, you know, take an exit ramp. But anyways, it frustrated the retailer and whatever, and so we just, you know, yeah, okay, whatever. And they went away, and I was like, this is so cool. So it's been sitting in my office for the last 3 years because I love it. I was trying to figure out a way. I'll sell it to somebody because I love putting this together and I want to do this job. Well, they called about, I don't know, 6 weeks ago and said, do you remember that cross we were talking about with the Easter lilies on it? I said, yep, as a matter of fact, it's sitting right here. And so we revisited it and got a contract, so it's sold. So you've got to be able to take a long view and be patient and realize that these things don't happen fast. And at this point, I got to get flying on stone. I'm behind on stuff. I don't like that. We've got, you know, had a lot of family stuff going on that has it makes it difficult to get stone going. And you're going to find, if you're a one-man shop, you know, like I am, if anything comes up, everything else shuts down. And so the last few weeks have been kind of tough, but we're getting back into the swing of it. We got a big open house this weekend, and I want to get this clay wrapped up so I can start the rubber on it, start casting it, and we'll see where this goes. As far as this video, I hope this is 159. I think what I'm going to do as well, and this is to sort of give you a heads up, I'm probably going to stop numbering these videos. We're going to run into a point where I've got to do with, I've been asked about shell rock pitch. Got some shell rock pitch jobs coming. I'm not ready to put that out there yet. And I want to explain that a little bit as to why. It's, in a lot of ways, shell rock pitch is like your driver's license, you know, driving a car. It's in the same idea. Just because you turn 16 and you pass the test and you got a foot that steps on the gas and a foot that steps on the brakes, it doesn't mean you're a good driver yet. It doesn't mean you're prepared to do things at a certain level. You're not going to think about the big picture the same way that somebody that's been driving for decades does. Somebody that has, you know, thousands of hours behind the wheel is going to look at the situation much differently than someone that's been driving for 2 months and says, hot dog, boy, this car will fly. And I can't find my hat. I put it down somewhere, so I got to find another hat. So they're up at the house. I just hadn't had time to look for it. But we have a lot of people. I got a couple of shell rock pitch jobs coming in that I do want a video because I need to capture this and I need to put it out there. The problem is that there are very few people who, and I'll make a bold statement, that are watching this that are prepared to do shell rock pitch. And the reason that I say that is because if I can't hand you a block of stone and say, cut it. And when I say cut it, when we cut a die, you know, we're pitching the die off. We, you know, lay it out. We use our patterns off the wall back and, you know, lay out a pattern or whatever, and it's going to be a, you know, certain top, and this is a drop in the width or whatever, and it's certain sides. We're going to do all this stuff. And, okay, go ahead and cut that die. Bang, 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 cut it and pitch it and chip it down and get the edges perfect and pitch the miters on the corners, everything. Do it. Just do it. Just like people want to do angels, the fancy stuff. Anybody can cut a die. That's not hard. Anybody can cut a marker or a foot stone. I want to do the fancy stuff. Okay. If you can't do that basic work really, really well so that you understand completely how that stone's going to break if you hit it like this or if you don't hit it like this, because what you do is as important as what you don't do, and then what you don't do is as important as what you do when you're doing something like shell rock pitch. And I want to capture that process really well, because it is extremely dangerous and treacherous to do. It's dangerous and difficult and treacherous for me to do, and I can do it. Okay? I understand that that stone is fixing to hand me my lunch and say, go to the house because you're not good enough to cut this. So it's really difficult. So I don't want to have numbers that are going to mess up people, that are going to whatever. I'll probably keep numbering the angel video to get this one wrapped. But we've got that. We've got other jobs coming. There's a lot that's going on, and it's hard to keep it all. It's hard to keep it all on a nice straight line, because that's not the way it happens. While I'm talking, I wanted to bring up, I've got some clay here off camera that is another project that I've got to, that we're in the initial discussions with in terms of how to present it. And I can use this clay, this plaster, as an example. The patron wants a certain motif. You know, they know what they want. They got a very specific idea what they want. And they want it done in bas relief. They want it, you know, raised on a stone. But what they want done is they want the object to be changed in terms of planes. And so basically what they want done is they want, if just say for instance it was this angel, they want this angel, and this is the front plane of the stone. Okay, you get that. You know, this is where we're working from. This is the front of the job. They want a couple of these deep spots brought completely to the front plane, and so how do you do that and make it look right? You know, just imagine if you took her, you know, this point on her collar, on her blouse, and her windpipe right here on her throat. Just imagine we had to bring those, I had to bring those to the face plane of this job. I had to bring it out here so where they were even with this other detail. Can you wrap your head around that? How do you do that? And not make it look like she's some Frankenstein monster, whatever, and totally wreck that composition. You can't tell a customer they're wrong, even if they could be way more right. So, you know, we tried to sketch this up in clay, just do quick sketches in a way that they could maybe better visualize, because some people don't look at things in shapes or forms or 3 dimensions. They don't see that like someone like me does, where that's my whole world, is I want to see that mass and see what's in it and see where these things are located. Just imagine having to bring her neck and her collar flush with the face of that, rest of that, and how you would do that. That's not something that's really feasible. You can do it, it just won't look right. It'll look like basically she's just a flat cutout with, you know, a silhouette around her. And then if you round off the rest of it, it kind of accentuates that stuff is even less likely, like it shouldn't even be there, even more so. So you're gonna have all kinds of calls and all kinds of contacts if you end up doing this work, and you're gonna have to find a way to diplomatically use your expertise to not say, oh, no, that's completely wrong, you don't want to do that. To say, this is what I would recommend. This is how I would approach that, because I think this will help people that look at it make more sense. I've talked about proofing material, you know, like dates and stuff like that on stones, and you got birth dates and death dates and everything. It's really good to have somebody that isn't the family member. And I know my mother's birthday, I know my birthday, and I know my father's birthday, and I can tell you what my birthday is. And then I want you that doesn't know me from Adam in terms of birthdays, you look at what they've got printed and tell me if it's right. Because I will look at it and I will superimpose what I know is right onto the page, and as long as the same information is on the page, I may transpose it in my mind to where it needs to be. Because like Glenn said, oh yeah, that's her birthday, but then I find out her birthday is under his death date, and that's mixed up. So, but there's, maybe this video kind of brings it together. The last little while since the last video has been a raging blur in my life. We've done a million things, just stuff that was totally unexpected, you know, and I don't mean, you know, just little things and having to put your umbrella on the right side of the door instead of the left side of the door. I mean, we've had some really big stuff going on. So, but your world is going to be very hectic and very busy, and you're going to have to manage that world outside of, you know, doing something like this. So I'm going to see if I can keep working on her and make her look right, and we'll probably back and put a little more on this video in a while, and maybe by that point I'll even find my hat, so hang in there. All right, something else I remembered, you know, in amongst my hectic world, we were out this morning, and I've got some jobs that are installed locally, okay? And one of them that's a real favorite, and it's for a friend that died, is I did a gargoyle. And so he wanted a good gargoyle guarding his cross. And you've seen the gargoyle plaster here on the wall, and if you've looked at my videos and go back a little bit, I've got video of the gargoyle once or twice of the project, and it's just a really dramatic, cool stone. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot going on in terms of anatomy that you don't usually get to carve. And so, because he's essentially a nude, and you don't get to do a lot of that in the memorial business. So he was installed, the gargoyle was installed about a decade ago. I don't remember the exact date. Mule died in 13, and it was after he died that we did it, got the stone. I don't remember if but it was probably 14, maybe 15 when we installed it. It's been a while. And so we were out there near that cemetery, and so I drove out to see it. And I want to feed some video in, because the cool part about that stone, you've got to understand, I keep talking about this, when you put a stone in the cemetery, as soon as you cut it and you put it out there, they're really hot, like bright, like when you when you pick up your phone or your iPad or something in the middle of the night and you open it up and all of a sudden you can't see, it's like looking in the headlights because it's so bright. Okay, a new stone that's put out is going to be hot like that. It's going to be really, really stark compared to the other stones around it. Same thing, you know, if you do it in a public setting and there's nothing to compare it to. As time passes, you're going to have birds that poop on it. You're going to have dust that blows and sticks in all the little crevices. You're going to have leaves and things like that land on it, and you get water in little puddles. And it will make like a tea stain on it. It'll start staining the stone. Here in the southeast, we've got red clay, and that red clay will splash and bounce up on the stone as it rains, and it looks like rust on it. It's all oranges. You've got to understand when you put something together how it's going to look beyond now. Because the pretty right now is only going to last for right now. That new car smell goes away, okay? And so you got to put it out there and understand how it's going to look, you know, in 10 years, and 20 years, and 50 years. This stone is just, had been out for about a decade. It's just starting to get some lichens that growing. It's just so cool. Getting real dirty. You know, we put the Jersey cow with floral, the shell rock pitch style. I got a video of that on. We put that out, and because of where it is in Vermont, there's a lot of organic potential as far as growth, and so it's already got lichens growing all over within just 2 or 3 years of installing it. So it'll be like covered, and you'll occasionally see people clean a headstone. You know, they'll come in and they'll pressure wash it, and scrub it all up, and acid wash it, and make it look great. Okay, great. That stone, that patina, took years or decades or maybe even a century or more to become what it was on that stone. And so you gotta decide what's important to you. If you want it to really look like the way it should look, we're carving them so they look cool when they get old, and not so they're all perfectly pristine, pretty, because if we did, they'd be something inside. Let's feed that video in here, and I want you to see, because I did some video up close and then I did some sitting in the car, so you could, 20, 30 feet away, so you could look at it and see how it demonstrates different, because that's really important to understand. Okay, check this out. It's been about 10 years since we installed this, and it's here in town, so I love to come see it just to see how the stone looks. I mean, I love seeing the carving, but I love seeing how, we've got, the lichens that are growing, and you can really see a lot of the axing and the hand tooling. And as the stone gets dirty, it just looks the way it's supposed to look. You see, it's starting to have, a little bit of lichen, maybe good moss growing down. Lichen starting to grow down there and dirty underneath, and you can see after all these years, it doesn't look like there's any losses, which is really great. It means I carved the details well, and I didn't go too far. Little things like his sharp fingernails and fingernails here, and all these are hanging on really well. So, and like I said, it's a toilet for birds. All that stuff helps things grow, and now we've got really good definition. And it's important to remember, when you're carving the stone, this is the reality of what it's going to look like years from now. You got to think far beyond the studio and think about how it's going to end up demonstrating, because as it gets little bits of green lichens starting to grow on it, it accentuates so much of the detail. See, the underside of his horn is all green, and there's real lichens starting to grow on it. Another 10 years, this is gonna look so fantastic. So anyways, and this is how it looks from a distance. You can see how all those crevices and everything that's holding dirt and debris really help it stand out and make it real visible as you look at it from 20 feet away. That's the whole point. So all right, and we're batting out this time, back to studio. All right, I think probably we can wrap this video up. It's not going to be terribly long, but I'm trying to tie things up so I can get back into the groove of carving and everything. We got open studio this weekend. People, will have our annual 2 or 3 visitors that come, because who's going to come look at this? We are available, for people that are wanting to come and check this out. Get in touch with me, call me up. If you want to come see me, I'm not going to beg you to come or invite you and chase you and all that other stuff. Nobody did that for me. We've had some people, we have people that stay in touch that are, interacting with projects going on, whether they're carving or doing clay or casting or all of it or whatever. That's all happening. And so We have people calling about apprenticeship opportunities, there's only so much I can do. You know, I'm not in the position to hire people to come to work. We don't do that anymore. I don't know anybody with a studio that has regular employees anymore. We just don't. The world's a different place. Lawyers and greedy people have made it that way. But that doesn't mean there's not opportunities to be here. You know, we had a call from Europe, you know, about someone wanting to come and be an apprentice to get hired. And I said, I can't offer you a job right now, but you know, maybe there's other things we can do. So let me know. But anyways, we'll wrap this up. My name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with a Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.